Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Geo, and today's story is called Tiny Footprints. A slim crescent moon hung over the buildings on a clear winter's night. February 2nd is known by many names: Candlemas, Groundhog Day, but I prefer Imbolc, the day we light candles and bonfires to lure the sun back to Earth. That's all fantasy, but there is some truth to it. We light fires to wake the fairies so they can dance. Not the cute little fairies seen in kid shows. Reality is different. According to legend, they are immortal and have the attitudes to go with them. Only those who believe can see them. I have a tiny favor I want to ask, if I can attract one. Rowan Hyde Park is about a city block in size, with dozens of trees and a large fountain in the middle. During the summer, the fountain sprayed high into the air and motes of light danced around it, and I've danced in the spray many times, hoping the fairies would notice me. During the winter, it's only a giant frozen puddle encased in concrete, but it's the closest thing I could find to a natural water source. The weather has warmed up and melted the ice into a muddy slush. The four elements: water from the fountain, a portable fan to move the air around, some polished obsidian stones for the earth, and a glassed candle for the fire. For extra measure, I included a small piece of rose quartz. February 2nd is important because it's the day fairies dance. Second month, second day, second hour, second minute. With all these twos, it has to be the right time. The only time better would be the first month, first day, first hour, first minute. But there are so many people in the park then that I would never have a chance to watch for any magical creature. I set up the small stones, fan, and candle on the edge of the fountain, then waited until my phone read 2 minutes after 2. I lit the candle and turned the fan on. The seconds ticked by. "Fairies," I whispered. "It's okay to come out. It's me again, Tom, your friend. I only want to watch you dance. Maybe I can ask you a favor?" I spun the little fan around, blowing the cold air in all directions. Holding up the candle, I waved it, then set it next to the water. I lined up the rocks beside it, north, south, east, west, or as close as I could determine. The rose quartz held the position of honor in the north. A slight ripple flowed through the watery slush. "Come and dance with me, my friends," I said. "I'll start." The candle flickered. I held my hands up as if I were dancing the waltz and did the box step. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. A breeze whistled through the barren branches. "Wake and dance, my friends. Fly and dance and sing," I said, spinning around. The glare of a flashlight interrupted me. A police officer walked up, adjusting his hat. "Perhaps you could explain what you are doing here," he said. If I stopped dancing, would that upset the fairies? Then again, the officer has already upset them, so they wouldn't show. "It's okay, little ones, don't hide." "You should probably go home before everybody thinks you're crazy," he said in a very deep voice. A tall man, at least 6 inches taller than me, and I'd guess 70 pounds heavier. All muscle. I froze, then lowered my arms. I didn't look at him, but at some spot on the ground. "In a minute, officer. I'm, waiting for someone." "Oh?" he said. "Who?" "I don't know their names," I mumbled, "and I'm hoping they'll be here soon. Maybe they're already here." "I've got time. Why don't you tell me about it? Let's be friendly. Officer Heath. My friends call me Gray." I'm Tom Jenkins," I said. I'm not hurting anything or vandalizing or painting graffiti, I swear." "Looked to me like you were dancing," Gray said. "Practicing, maybe?" "No, sir. It's an old tradition, and it might look a little weird," I said, "but there's a good explanation for it." "I'm listening," Gray said. He walked over and looked at the candle and my small collection of obsidian stones. "They're real," I said, daring to look at him for a second. "Fairies, the little folk, the Sith, the people who are just out of sight. They are there, watching us." "Leprechauns, ogres, things that live under the bridge. Keep going," Gray said, keeping his face completely neutral. He picked up one of the obsidian stones and shook his head. "That explains it." "Excuse me?" I said. "It's nothing. You were saying?" he said. "They can do anything," I said. "They're magic. Regular rules don't apply to them." "You mean they can fly or turn invisible?" Gray said. "Some can," I said, hoping that Gray wouldn't think I'm crazy. "Some grant wishes. Some change things into gold. Some turn into birds or animals. Some can look like people. There is all kinds." "So you want gold, is that it?" Gray said. "No," I said. "Those fairies usually want some kind of enormous payment in return, or put a curse on you. I don't want that." "What do you want?" Gray said. "You'd think I was crazy," I said. "You probably already do." "You haven't seen crazy," Gray said, folding his arms. "Tell me, we're just talking. Two guys in the middle of the night standing next to a fan blowing the cold air around, and a lit candle in a fountain. Nothing weird here." I turned the fan off, gathered the rocks and put them in my pocket, and blew the candle out. I gave the officer a smile that I'm afraid came off as sad, because my chance to talk to the fairies was gone. "First, we'd go dancing," I said. "They'd like that. Then I'd ask them a favor. I don't have much to pay for it, but maybe they wouldn't ask for much. It's only for a night." "Only for a night?" Gray asked. "They'd probably ask for your firstborn or something." "I don't want one of the mean ones," I said, staring at the smoke coming from the candle wick. I need a boyfriend to take to my sister's wedding. I've told everybody I had one, but I've been too scared to find one." "Too shy as well," Gray said. "What would you offer one of the Fey folk? Aren't they only a couple of inches tall?" "A lot are," I said, "but some are as tall as you or me. Some are even taller." "What would you offer?" Gray said. "A dance? A slice of the wedding cake? I don't have any gold, so that's out. What do you think they would want?" I asked. Gray smiled. "You're asking me? When is it?" "Tonight," I said. "I'm thinking I wouldn't go, make up some excuse, but then Mom would never let me hear the end of it. None of them believe. They think I should grow up and be like them. You probably think I'm schizophrenic or delusional, but I'm not." "You've really thought this through," Gray said. "It would be just my luck that one of the Fae would say yes, but it would be a rock troll or something covered in warts," I said. "You have a problem with rock trolls and warts?" Gray said, hiding his smile behind his hand. No, sir. I think all the Fae are beautiful," I said, packing the candle and fan into a bag. Mom would think it was silly. This was a dumb idea, wasn't it?" "As dumb ideas go, I've seen worse," Gray said. "Nobody got hurt, nothing got destroyed, and it is a nice night. I haven't had a night out for a long time." "Excuse me?" I said. "I'm not the date you wanted, but you're stuck with me. I'll pick you up at 6, Gray said. "Semi-formal all right?" You'll go with me?" I asked. "You'll pretend to be my boyfriend?" "Seeing how there's no magical creatures lining up right now, I guess I'm it," Gray said. Aren't you on duty?" "I won't be then," Gray said. "If I pretend to be your boyfriend, you'll owe me 3 dances and a slice of cake." Me? Why?" I haven't had a decent date, well, any date, for a long time. So why not? Do you have something against police officers? He asked. No, I said, but what? Gray said. I said, you'll really pretend to be my boyfriend? Let's settle terms, Gray said. For 3 dances and a slice of cake, I'll pretend to be your boyfriend. That means holding hands, quiet whispering, and occasionally I'll put my arm around the shoulders of one Mr. Tom Jenkins. If you want me to kiss you, that will require an extra dance. I'll pick you up at your place, 6 o'clock, sharp, then have you home by midnight. Gray walked away. Wait, I yelled. I haven't told you where I live. 333 Willowland Apartments. You're 5'11", 170 pounds, age 21, brown eyes, brown hair, organ donor, and you live alone. Gray waved. How did you know all that? I said. You forget. I'm a cop, Gray said. I ID'd the vehicle in the parking lot before I came down here. At 5 to 6 that evening, I peeked out my apartment door to see if Gray had showed up. He hadn't, but unless he drove a police car, I wouldn't know what car he was driving. My phone beeped. I looked down to find a text from my mom. If you are not here in 5 minutes, you'll make me angry. I reached into my pocket and clutched one of my obsidian stones. It's supposed to protect me from negativity, and it's supposed to make me strong. I imagined all the negativity around me flowing into the stones. Breathe in the calm, breathe out the fear, breathe in the calm, breathe out the fear. The rose quartz is for love. I haven't had much luck with that. Most men avoid guys who dance in fountains and talk to imaginary people. Somebody knocked on my door. I opened it. Officer Gray Heath. He was actually here. A strange lightness filled me, and I could almost jump and dance. He wore a very nice double-breasted beige suit, a black shiny tie, and a white fedora. A small violet rosebud was pinned to his lapel that brought out the violet in his eyes. If he had an old-style machine gun, he'd look like a gangster from an old movie. I stared at him and grinned. You look good out of uniform. Wearing a suit. He tipped his hat at me. You look nice too, Mr. Tom Jenkins. He leaned in and flatly kissed me on the cheek. That's 4 dances you owe me. Or a slice of cake, I said. I prefer the dance. Are you ready? Gray said, handing me a small box. What's this? I asked. I wouldn't be a proper boyfriend if I didn't get you one of these, Gray said. I opened the box to find a hat identical to his and a small violet rosebud just like the one Gray wore. He placed the hat on my head and pinned the rosebud to my lapel with a gold pin. Taking my arm, he led me to his police car and held the passenger door open while I slid in. He got in the driver's side, whistling. A hat? A custom boutonniere? How much did this cost? I'll help pay. You're my boyfriend tonight, Gray said, and smiled. 4 dances and a slice of cake. Seriously? I said. You're doing this for fun? I told you it was my first date in a long time, Gray said. Might be a while before I have another, so I'm going all out. Now tell me about everybody so I don't make a fool of myself. We drove, never hitting a red light, and Gray listened to every word I said, holding my hand. For a moment, he made me feel like I had a boyfriend. We arrived at the reception center and pulled through the parking lot to a cleared space in front of the door. Gray, once again, got the door for me. Thank you, I said. I hope you dance with people as well as you dance with invisible fairies, Gray said, and tilted my hat a little so it matched his. Looping my arm in his, he led me into the hall. Do you work out? I whispered, feeling his arm. Your arm must be rock solid. I've been known to lift a few weights, Gray said. Don't look now, but I think a middle-aged woman is marching our way. I looked, and he was right. She dabbed at her eyes with one hand and clutched her purse with the other. She had a turquoise hat with a half veil covering her face, a dress of the same color, and matching shoes and purse. Finally, you get here. It's so nice of you to leave your pretend world and join us in this one. You should have been here hours ago, she bellowed. I blew a breath out and imagined all the negativity getting absorbed into my obsidian stones. Hi, Mom. You came in a police car? What did you do? Trespass again? Mom yelled. Get your worthless butt to the kitchen. They need help with the garbage. Not tonight, Mom. I'd like you to meet my date, I said, squeezing Gray's hard hand. This is Officer Gray Heath. Call me Gray, ma'am. His violet eyes twinkled, and a little smile peeked out. I'm Tom's boyfriend. Gray was enjoying this. So was I. I snuggled a little closer to him, and Gray put an arm around my shoulders. Is that the policeman who busted you last time? Mom said. And he's your date? More likely the city assigned him to watch over you. My tax money at work, and it's babysitting you. We have a lot of work to do, and, like usual, your head is dreaming your absurd fantasies, and you bring a date? Your boyfriend will have to sit somewhere else because we don't have a seat for him with the family. And you wore a purple boutonniere? You know my favorite color is turquoise. How dare you be so inconsiderate at your sister's wedding? Gray stopped smiling. I took a deep breath and imagined my fear flowing into my obsidian stones. I had to do something, maybe more dancing. Looking at Gray, I stammered, 5 and 6? A 2-dance kiss? Very well. You asked for it, Gray said. He raised his eyebrows, leaned over, and kissed me. Like his arm, his lips were firm, his tongue strong. I held him. His back was as solid as his arm. I no longer heard anybody in the reception hall. His kiss reminded me of long summer days spent in the sun, of chilled strawberry wine, of flowers dancing in the meadows, of midnight dances in the warm night air, swarms of brightly colored butterflies leaping into the sky. Somewhere, a simple flute melody called to me. His kiss transported me away from here, and the air became pure and smelled of rain. The sun became brighter. For a moment, I was in a meadow at the height of spring. Yellow and blue flowers carpeted the ground. A breeze blew through the air. A ripple fluttered a small puddle. The flowers were bright as fire. The obsidian in my pocket was warm, but not as warm as the rose quartz. Gray's mouth tasted a little like warm berries picked in the heat of the day, when their juices are the sweetest. He smelled of fresh air and the clean scent of cut herbs. The vision faded, and I stood beside him, his arms solid about me. The world seemed a little brighter than a moment ago. I hugged him, and his body was as firm as his lips. I felt safe, at peace. The fear flowed away from me, and some of his strength flowed into me. It took a moment before I realized that Gray released me, and he slowly chuckled. I whispered, "Can we do that again?" Gray smiled and whispered in my ear, "You are going to really owe me." Mom still stood by us, but she wasn't talking. Her brows furrowed and her mouth angled down like she'd eaten a really sour pickle. She had her hands on her hips. "Come on, Gray, we're going to be late," I said. "You don't disrespect your mom," Mom said. "You will apologize right now, or I will get angry." "Shut up," my dad said, coming up to join us. "You always were rude. The day I divorced you was the best day of my life. Tom, introduce us." "Dad, this is Gray. He's a police officer," I said. "And boyfriend," Gray said. "We met at the park." You'll regret defying me. Mom stormed off while we made small talk with my dad. I led Gray into the hall where everybody was taking their seats. We sat close to the back. They had the hall set up with many rows of metal folding chairs. The first 2 rows were cordoned off with turquoise ribbons. One side for the bride's family, the other side for the groom. Both sides were already full. On many tables were fresh-cut bouquets of white lilies and turquoise roses in clear vases. On the far side of the room was an elegant wedding cake done in off-white buttercream frosting, swirls of edible pearls, and turquoise frosting roses. It didn't have a bride and groom on top. My grandparents came over, and I had to introduce Gray, then several friends of the family. Finally, the music started, and we took a seat. "What are you smiling about?" Gray said. "It's nice having a boyfriend," I blurted out. That made me sound pathetic and tiny, like everybody wanted to forget me, except Gray. As if reading my mind, Gray wrapped an arm around my shoulders as if to protect me, and drew me in close. His violet eyes caught mine and wouldn't let go. It is nice having a boyfriend, even if it's only for a night. For a couple of minutes, I snuggled into Gray's warmth. "I guess we'll have to have another dance," Gray said, quietly kissing my forehead. "I'm never going to remember all these names." Sometimes I don't either," I said. "Can I ask you about the kiss earlier?" Gray took my hand and kissed it. His smile peeked out again. "It was just a kiss." "Not for me," I said. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't like any other kiss I've ever had. Did you see the meadow? Who are you?" "An off-duty police officer," Gray said. "You owe me 7 dances and a slice of cake." "Can we make it 8? I said. "You'll be dancing with me the whole night," Gray said. "Good thing I like to dance." Gray leaned over, and our lips barely touched. Our kiss transported me to summer fields and summer skies, and once again the soft flute played in my mind. "Break it up," my dad whispered. "The bride's here." A song played, but not the traditional wedding march. I didn't recognize it. I forced myself back to reality and backed a little from Gray. "Dad, aren't you supposed to be walking my sister? You know, the father of the bride tradition?" "I received an invite to attend, but that's as far as your mother would allow," Dad said. "The bride is to walk alone in all her majesty." "It's not unheard of," I said. "Usually somebody from the family walked with the bride." "The giving of something precious from one family to another," Gray said. "The blending of 2 families to make a stronger one. Traditions are not to be ignored." We removed our hats for the ceremony, and Gray held my hand. The wedding music began. All the bridesmaids wore turquoise. All the groomsmen wore tuxedo and turquoise ties. Mom walked down the aisle, alone, a gracious queen in turquoise. Finally, the bride entered. My sister smiled behind her veil. Alone. Her bouquet was a collection of white lilies surrounded by turquoise roses. Gray held me tight. He might only be doing it to pretend that he's my boyfriend, but I enjoyed his closeness, his warmth, the solid feel of his body. I felt safe next to him. I didn't have to be afraid. Even though we were in the middle of the service, I laid my head on his shoulder. A soft breeze gently blew through the decorations. A couple of candles flickered. I closed my eyes and I was back at the fountain. But this time it was spring, and I danced in the shallow water. With Gray, we kicked up the water, twirled around, then the fountain sprayed into the air, drenching us both. Light sparkled off the droplets. The sun shone a little brighter. I tripped, fell in the water, and Gray landed on top of me. We laughed, we smiled, and kissed. It felt real. Then I was back, snuggling into Gray's warmth, his arm about me. I didn't want to move or him to move. Our shoes were wet. Whoever my sister got to do the ceremony droned on about love being like a car. I reached into my pocket and pulled out one of the obsidian stones I carried. The flickering candles were the fire. The soft wind was the air. The obsidian was the earth. If there was water around, the fairies might be here, and they might be dancing. Even now, I wanted so much to see them. Gray squeezed my hand. I scanned the room for water. The clear vases held fresh flowers, which meant water inside. I think they're here, I whispered. Don't scare them away, Gray said, and lightly kissed my forehead. He and I were in the meadow, holding hands, the sunlight streaming bright on our faces. Blue wildflowers bloomed everywhere. I plucked one and smelled it. Gray took it and placed it behind my ear, then lightly kissed me. Dozens of tiny heads peeked around flowers or rocks and giggled as we passed by. The little people watched us. I teared up and smiled. They're real. We walked a short ways to an odd circle on the ground. A fairy circle? I said. They dance here. Even though it was a daydream, I took Gray inside the circle, and he placed his hands about me. And we danced. The little fairies played tiny flutes and guitars, singing and giggling. Some flew about us, laughing and throwing flower petals at us. Gray led me in an old-style ballroom dance with dips and twirls. Gray was in charge, and I pulled myself closer until he wrapped his arms about me. Our dance became intimate and personal until neither of us moved. A fairy sat on a rock holding a flute and played for us, for me. The wind whispered around us. Somewhere out of sight and almost beyond hearing were tiny voices that I could almost understand. Flower petals floated on the air. The sun grew brighter, the colors more intense. It's so beautiful, I whispered. Yes, it is, Gray whispered back. Be very quiet. The fairies are very timid, unless they're angry. Gray's eyes were the most intense violet I had ever seen. He almost smiled right before we kissed again. Can you love someone after only a kiss? He slept through the entire service. How rude, Mom's shrill voice yelled. The dream shattered. We had a late night last night, Gray said. Good for you, my dad said. Tom looks comfortable enough. Let him sleep. With all the noise, I woke up, and the first thing I looked at were Gray's eyes. Violet. Like the dream, the fear had left, and something like joy replaced it. Somewhere, the flute player still serenaded us. I smiled at Gray, and he smiled back. Take me back to the meadow, I whispered. I didn't care if it cost another dance or a slice of cake. I kissed him, trying to capture the feeling of the dream. I closed my eyes, desperate to hear the singing, to dance in the fairy ring, to kiss in the fountain. I wanted the little people to dance with me, fly around me, bring the magic back into my life. I wanted to hold Gray and dance and feel safe. Shameless, my mom said. Look at you. You're at a wedding. Do you think I want to see one of my children engaged in this kind of behavior? Do you think anybody here wants to see this? Are we at 15 yet? I whispered to Gray. If you count our dreams, we're at 23. And rising, Gray whispered back. Are you listening to me? Mom yelled and stamped her foot. I pulled out my phone and found some music. As I stood, offering my hand to Gray, I said, Bully someone else, Mom. Gray and I have a date with the dance floor. Bully? Dance? Mom grabbed my arm and whirled me around, her face scowling and turning red. You will not talk to me like that. I lost my balance and fell onto the metal chairs, then the floor, squashing the hat Gray had given me. The chairs clattered around me. Tom, are you all right? My dad said. The sunlight died, leaving the hall in darkness. Gray stood, but he wasn't the same Gray I had come here with. 8 feet tall, violet eyes, and made of polished obsidian. He helped me up. Thunder clapped inside the hall. Little figures crawled in the shadows. Some jumped down from the sky. With sharp teeth and sharp claws, they formed a circle around me and Gray. They weren't dancing. A violent sky filled with whirls and building clouds and leaves whipped through the air. We were outside. Once again, we were in the meadow, but the sky was angry and dark. Rain fell in hard, stinging lumps. The little fairies brandished small swords and small spears. Many had small bows. They hissed and screamed something in a language I didn't know. Several tiny arrows struck my mom and stuck in her dress or hair. Mom stepped back. "What?" In a voice as deep as the earth, Gray commanded, "Leave my boyfriend alone, human." Mom whimpered. Then the hall was back. Mom took a step away from us and fell into a chair. She had hundreds of tiny arrows poking out of her hair and dress, and large raindrop splatters stained her turquoise dress. Gray picked me up in his arms and kissed me. He was normal again. My friends hate having their dance interrupted. I'd hate to be your mom for the next couple of days. Anything hurt, Tom? Just the hat. I'm sorry about that. Dad picked up the hat and shook it out and put it on my head. It has a little character now. The water in the clear vases rippled. The candles flickered. The obsidian was as warm as Gray was. A breeze blew through the hall, even though the doors and windows were closed. Little voices sang. A tiny fairy peeked around the wedding cake. She stuck her finger in the frosting and tasted it. I guess she liked it, because she took one of the frosting roses and wore it like a hat. "They're here," I whispered. The little fairy was joined by others, and they danced on top of the cake. "It's tradition," Gray said, watching it with me. The air smelled of a warm summer day in the meadow. Somewhere, a flute played. Gray set me down before the cake, and the fairies bowed. It didn't matter that we didn't have music that other people could hear. The fairies played for us, and the flute player perched on one of the chairs and played some lively melody. We danced. We kissed. The little fairies danced and kissed around us, filling the dance floor with joy. I don't want this night to end," I said. "Who are you?" "I'm Gray, Lord of the Heath, the obsidian prince of the rock trolls," he said. "Your boyfriend." My eyes widened. "For the night?" "Until the dancing stops. Then I'll keep kissing you," I said, looking up at Gray and hoping the moment was real. If it's okay." Gray leaned in and kissed me. "If you look close at the cake, it has tiny footprints on the frosting." Thank you, everybody, for joining me. We'll see you next time. Peace.